Welcome to the Alliance webinar series on NGOs and the voluntary targets. In this series, we are focusing on each of the voluntary targets and how NGOs can use them in their advocacy work with their governments. In this webinar, we focus on Target 5, that the target is by 2030, 100% of new and used vehicles meet high-quality safety standards, such as the recommended priority UN regulations, global technical regulations, or equivalent recognized national performance requirements. The webinar is presented by Jessica Truong, Vice President of Programs at the Global New Car Assessment Program. Global NCAP is an NGO leader, is an alliance member as well, and they're an NGO leader in the field of car manufacturing standards through its assessment program and advocacy for vehicle safety technologies. Jessica will talk about why car standards matter and how you can advocate for better standards. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the Global Road Safety Performance Targets. Today, we will be speaking very specifically about target number 5 on vehicle safety. My name is Jessica Truong, and I'm from the Global New Car Assessment Program. And I've been invited here to speak to you today about why vehicle safety matters and how that relates to the Global Road Safety Performance Target on vehicle safety. So on this next slide, we can see that the target number 5 of the Global Road Safety Performance Target is specifically on, by 2030, 100% of new cars, which is defined as produced, sold, or imported, as well as used vehicles, have to meet high quality vehicle safety standards as recommended by UN regulations. On this slide, you will see that we will cover why vehicle safety matters, the importance of regulations, the role of NCAPs, and how NGOs like yourselves can help with this cause. We will talk about the potential of safe vehicles. So how can vehicle safety help save lives? There's numerous research that have been conducted which has shown that safe cars save lives. And this particular research that I've highlighted on this slide from Monash University shows that if we can all drive the very safest car in our class of vehicles, so small cars, large cars, medium-sized cars, if everyone can upgrade to the safest car in that particular class, then we can reduce road trauma by up to a third. And that's a huge amount. If you consider the number of people that die globally every year being at more than 1.35 million, if we can just reduce that by a third, just by getting people to drive the safest car possible, that is an enormous reduction. And that's the power of safe vehicles. And that's why we work so hard to make sure that there are safe vehicles on the road. You can see this is a chart of the world motor vehicle production in 2018 last year. So on this slide, you can see the top 10 vehicle producing countries in 2018. There are more than 90 million cars produced every single year. Some of these cars that are produced are safe cars and others are not so safe. So with every car that is produced that is not safe, that is a massive opportunity lost. And anyone that is using that car and unfortunately becomes involved in a crash will have a much higher risk of death and serious injury. And if you consider that cars often remain on the road for 20, 30 years and even longer in some countries, that initial purchasing decision will last a long time. And that sort of explains why there is such an urgency in implementing the right vehicle safety regulations and measures, because it will take a long time for these measures to penetrate the whole fleet. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll talk about why there is a need for regulation. What is the role of regulations in ensuring cars are safe? So why do we need countries to have vehicle safety regulations? Because without the right regulations in place, vehicle manufacturers are free to produce a car of any safety standard and be able to legally sell them without any consequences. In countries where there are no regulations in place, when a consumer goes and buys a car, there is no guarantee that the vehicle that they buy will afford them, at the very least, a basic level of safety. So when a consumer goes buy a car, It could be a safe car, it could be an unsafe car. Without regulations in place, it'll be very difficult for the consumer to understand and know what they're buying. And on the next slide, I've highlighted here the key priority UN regulations that all countries should have in place as an absolute minimum. So you can see on this list, the key priorities include things such as seatbelt anchorages, restraints, front and side collision protection, electronic stability control, and pedestrian protection. These are very basic regulations. They have been around for a very long time. And, a lot of high-income countries have already implemented them, but there are still way too many countries around the world that don't have these in place. And if we move on to the next slide, you can see on this particular graph, out of the 193 UN member states, only 40 of these countries have fully applied all 7 of the regulations I've just mentioned. And of these 40 countries, the majority are high-income countries. And for us to be able to reduce the global road trauma, one of the key priorities is to get all countries applying these regulations as a matter of urgency, as per the target that we mentioned earlier. And these regulations don't just apply to new cars, but they also apply to used vehicles. For countries that rely on imported second-hand vehicles, it is just important for that country to ensure any cars that are imported into their countries for sale or for use also meet these minimum safety standards that we've listed. So regulations are for both new and used vehicles, and they are equally as effective for both. I've got an example here of demonstrating why regulation is so crucial. In 2016, Global NCAP conducted a car-to-car crash test on the NISSAN TSURU and the NISSAN Versa. Now, both cars are produced by a global manufacturer, by NISSAN, and both were manufactured in the same country. Both were manufactured in Mexico. However, the difference is the Versa, which is the 5-star car, was destined for the US market, a country that has vehicle safety regulations in place, while the 0-star NISSAN TSURU was destined for the local market in Mexico, a country where there are no regulations in place. And now we're going to watch the video showing you exactly what happens when we crash the 0 and 5-star cars together. But the outcome of that car-to-car crash test is as you would imagine it to be. The 5-star Versa well outperforms the 0-star TSURU in protecting its occupants. You will see in the video how the cabin of the car gets absolutely crushed and the dummy in the car, as a result, also gets extremely crushed. And there's a very, very high likelihood that the occupants of the TSURU will not walk away unscathed. At the very least, they'll have very, very serious injuries, or, if not, they might even die in that particular crash. And this car-to-car crash just highlights, the importance of regulation. And this is all due to the presence or absence of vehicle regulations in place in a particular country. Having the right regulations in place will ensure manufacturers will produce safer cars. In addition to ensuring that the right regulations are in place, new car assessment programs can also add an extra layer of incentive for manufacturers to produce safer cars. New car assessment programs, or NCAPs for short, are programs that crash test new cars and provides the car with a safety rating from 0 being very, very poor to a 5-star car. It's an independent consumer program that provides independent safety advice to consumers in a particular country. So when people go buy a car, they can make an informed choice as to how well that car can protect them. They will know what level of safety the car offers and what sort of safety equipment the car actually comes with. So there are currently 9 new car assessment programs available around the world, and you can see on this slide where they are. There are also 2 pilot programs that Global NCAP are running in India and Africa. So in the absence of regulations, consumers really have no idea how well a car can protect them if it crashes. So NCAPs really helps fill that gap. So we encourage everyone, especially fleet managers, when they are looking at buying a new car, to go check out how safe the car that they are interested in before buying that particular car. It is worth remembering that there are affordable 5-star options available worldwide, and consumers and fleet managers should be looking to purchase only 5-star cars, or at the very least a 4-star car option. Safety doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. Like we sort of mentioned earlier, you know, there are affordable 5-star, 4-star car options available everywhere in the world. So consumers don't have to compromise their safety, and there are affordable cars available everywhere in the world. And if we move on to the next slide, it helps explain why consumers should be looking to buy a 5-star car. And the reason is that a 5-star car will offer a lot more protection in the event of a crash. So on this slide, you can see that you will have a 23% less risk of serious and fatal injuries in a 5-star car compared to a 2-star car. So with each increase of a 1-star rating, you can increase your personal safety by 20 to 25% if your car was actually involved in a crash. So we absolutely encourage, before you look at buying your next car, head to your local new car assessment program website and check out the safety rating of the car that you're interested in buying. And here on the next slide, I've listed all the NCAPs that are available around the world, as well as the 2 pilot programs that we are running and their respective websites. So definitely, if you're interested in finding out the current safety rating of the car that you're driving or looking to buy a new car, have a look at the website and check out the rating of these cars before you make your next purchasing decision. And on the very final slide, we'll talk a little bit about how can NGOs like yourselves help with the global movement around vehicle safety. And NGOs can do a great amount to help accelerate the uptake of regulations and accelerate the penetration of safer cars into the global fleet. You can help by advocating for the universal application of UN minimum safety standards for crash protection as well as crash avoidance. Lobby your government, speak to your local government reps, and get them to consider putting in the minimum safety standards at the very least if your country doesn't already have them in place. And advocate for stronger consumer information. Help promote new car assessment programs in your respective region. Make sure that consumers actually know there are new car assessment programs out there. So when they go buy a car, they can make an informed decision and know what the safety rating of their next car is before they actually buy. You can help raise awareness about the importance of vehicle safety. You know, out of all the topics in road safety, vehicle safety may be one that isn't spoken about as much, but, you know, it is one of the key areas and key priorities if we were to reduce the global road trauma rate. Vehicle safety is a hugely important issue that needs more awareness and more action around. So you can help by speaking about vehicle safety and telling people about how important it is. And lastly, you can make an individual difference by purchasing a 5-star car next time you are looking to purchase a new car. And you can jump on the NCAP website, as we have mentioned earlier, and check out those ratings. Every car that is sold that is a 5-star car will make a huge difference in the years to come. I thank you all for your time today in hearing this webinar on vehicle safety. And if you have any questions about any of the content or vehicle safety in general, I welcome you to contact me. My contact details are in one of the earlier slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for explaining this important topic. We hope that you find this webinar useful. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you may have, and please complete the feedback form that you find on our website. Have a safe day.